For taking the time out. And I thought I wanted to start with first, this is Dr. Ravi's new book, Hinduism and its primary sources, Hinduism, the primary sources, and concept. So I thought what we'll do just in maybe 15, 20 minutes is I'll walk you through some basic key concepts in Hinduism. Despite all its diversity, all Hindus will acknowledge these concepts. Before I actually tell you about the concepts, there's a prelude to even the concepts, right? Which is, why do the Hindus believe what they believe? And it's based in, like, if you think about, unlike most other religions, Hinduism doesn't have a single founder or founder or leader who, kind of built the tradition up. It's more a tradition of lineages of teachers, and those lineages typically come from or are building on these core philosophical schools. So there are 6 philosophical schools that basically ask questions like, how do you know what there is to know, right? Epistemology, right? So that's Nyaya school. How do you know what you know? Literally like Descartes type of questions, right? I think, therefore I am. Who am I? What is this place that I'm in? What is my purpose in this place, right? Those kinds of philosophical questions are covered here. And so it's got everything from like epistemology, ontology to theory and praxis and kind of even theology mixed in it. The prelude to the prelude is, and these schools will all acknowledge the Vedas. This is our prelude to the prelude, as canonical. And because we're mostly historians, the interest in kind of chronology is, always paramount. So some context on that as well. In actually Vedic tradition, it's an oral tradition. I think everyone knows this. Hinduism is a predominantly oral tradition, so the value of books, like written books, is not as much. It's more about the sound, as we were just discussing a while ago. And so I want to read something from one of the Vedas about the Vedas' perception of the written word and of text. A pupil should not recite the Vedas after he has eaten meat, seen blood or a dead body, had intercourse, or engaged in writing. So meat eating, blood, dead body, intercourse, these are all considered to be highly polluting activities that pollute the consciousness of the person, and therefore they cannot focus on spirituality. And so writing is actually put in that category of things. So you can imagine if it has such a low regard for writing, you're unlikely to find texts dating further back until the oldest manuscript that we have, is 1500 BCE of the Vedas, the Rig Veda. But there's archaeological evidence of civilization predating Harappa or Indus civilization of up to 7000 BCE. Anyway, so that's 1500 BCE. A lot of this philosophical school, most of the earliest known text for each school, most of them are around 300, 200 BCE. There's maybe 1 or 2 that's 300 CE also. So then we move from, this is the basis on which Hindus believe what they believe, and these are the core concepts, okay? So for every Hindu, there are 4 key objects of life, of human life, 4 key pursuits or goals of human life: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And yes, you may not remember the terms, and that's fine, but I wanted to give you a sense of the types of goals, and I think the language helps a little bit. So dharma comes from the root dri, which means to hold or sustain. Now, this is an important concept in Hinduism on there's a rita or a season or a cycle, social order. There's a sacred order that essentially governs everything in this world. Like, nothing in this world is actually random. Everything is like, the seasons change, human body changes, society is ordered in a certain way. All of that is part of the Dhri or the Rita, the social order, or the sacred order. And so one goal for human life is to figure out what my place in that social order, in that sacred order is. What is my duty? Then comes artha. Artha literally means meaning, or that which gives me fulfillment, right? Over time, it came to mean wealth and power. Okay? So what's my duty? One goal is to have wealth and power. Another goal is to fulfill my karma, my sensorial desires, my desire for touch, taste, or sound, etc., smell. And then the final goal, it's kind of like you do these three, and then you start thinking about that one, is moksha, which is to really think about, the situation that I'm in. What I don't want is I don't want the suffering of birth, death, old age, disease. And so how do I get out of that? So these four goals, the four purusharthas, if you look at the categorization, right, this is a very cosmological goal. This is a temporal goal. What will give me fulfillment in the here and now in this life? This is a sensorial goal. How will my senses be pleased? And this is a spiritual goal. This is spiritual but self-reflexive. How will I get happy? Like, how will I feel no suffering, no pain? There is another goal, which kind of is a later addition to a later textual addition, and like a movement that is more predominant in, say, post 10th century CE, etc. That's bhakti. And bhakti comes from the root bhaj, which means to share or serve. And that is to have a relationship with the Supreme Divine. And that then is, of course, it's spiritual, but it is at the same time relational. So you're looking to how can I serve that Supreme Lord? And it essentially is it contains, or it's a superset of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, because you can execute bhakti while at the same time fulfilling all these four, because bhakti is an active, active practice, like you do things in bhakti. And then finally, the other concept that everyone will be familiar with and has become like a globally accepted concept now, which is karma, right? Which is the law of cause and effect. You do something, you will have a reaction for it. And you can do karma either in the service of, in any of those four goals, or in the service of bhakti. So karma is essential to achieve either the purusharthas or to even execute bhakti, right? So karma that's why an important concept. Karma also comes back to the understanding of why moksha is a desired goal. Because you do karma, you do some action, you have some effect of that, and you may see that in another life. And so the concept of rebirth is also, the concept of rebirth and reincarnation is something that is common for all Hindus. Yeah, so sort of building from here, right? So relational between me and God. But if me is somebody who takes birth again and again in different bodies based on my karma, then who am I really? Am I this body? Am I this Harshika? So that question leads us to the exploration of the soul in each conscious being. Okay, so a question for the audience, which is, what do you think are, like, what's the core motivation that all humans have, that all conscious beings have? One core motivation that you can think of, like common. Mm-hmm. So I never want to die, right? So Sat means eternal. So that desire that I never want to die in Hinduism is because the soul is eternal. And so it naturally has that desire to never want to die, to live forever, because it is living forever. It just doesn't know it. Other kinds of, any other, because there are two more. So are there others that you're thinking about? Nice, to be happy. So Ananda is bliss.
It's gotta be no. Life, liberty, no. It matches the life.
What are we doing? What are we doing right now? knowledge, learning. I want to know who am I, right? When we do, say, when we do astronomy or when we do biology, whatever, it is that quest for learning. And so this is knowledge. Now, the reason that humans have these needs, these core motivations, is because that is the essential nature of the soul. And the soul is a qualitatively the same as the Supreme Lord. And so what you see in the soul as Sat, Chit, and Anand are the features that are defining of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. Now, God doesn't automatically translate in Hindi or in Sanskrit. So there are different conceptions of God. 3 primary conceptions of God in Hinduism: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. Brahman is the quality-less absolute truth. So it's like this radiant effulgence of that's full of Satchitanand, right? It's kind of like the divinity that is just around us, and this white light that you kind of want to merge into. So Brahman is kind of omnipresent because it is the like it's in every object, but also at the same time a position to attain. The second feature or the second manifestation of God is Paramatma. Okay, so Brahman is the energy that pervades the cosmos and is also an energy that's up there. Then Paramatma is actually that energy or that person that's like right here. It's in my heart, it resides in my heart, a person who is a witness and a constant companion. So while Brahman is transcendent, Paramatman is immanent right here. And he's a witness, he's always looking at what actions I'm doing, he's feeling the pain that I'm feeling, kind of compassion with me. And Bhagavan, and so Paramatma is representing primarily Sat and Chit, the curiosity of the individual and how the individual is gaining knowledge. And finally, Bhagavan. Bhagavan is both transcendent and immanent at the same time, because Bhagavan is that from which Paramatma and Brahman emanate. Now, this depends on which philosophy that you're looking at, and that goes back to our philosophical schools as well. For some Hindus, Brahman expands into Paramatma and Bhagavan. For some Hindus, Paramatma is the absolute truth. And for some Hindus, Bhagavan is the absolute truth, which then opens up into Paramatma and Bhagavan, Paramatma and Brahman. And Bhagavan, because he is transcendent and immanent both, he is a person who is full of knowledge, full of bliss, full of etc., and full of opulences, essentially. Bhaga means to be opulent, to be wealthy, and to be all-powerful. So Bhagavan becomes omnipotent. And because Bhagavan is both transcendent and immanent, like you could think of it as kind of seeing the divine in everything, then seeing the divine as my friend, and then perhaps seeing the divine as my master, something like that. But my master who's also my friend and who's also in everything. And because he's both transcendent and immanent, that allows for a relationship in bhakti, that allows to serve and to share. Yeah, I guess the final thing then is on what then is Hinduism monotheistic or polytheistic or many of the other words? And I think it's hard to answer that. And the closest term that that I found, which made sense, was polymorphic monotheism. So there is one supreme God, the Supreme Lord, and he manifests either as his energies that then pervade the cosmos, or as avatars, or avatars would be manifestations of as specific gods, essentially to improve the relatability that he has with his devotees. Like there may be some devotees who may relate more with Bhagavan's um, beauty. And so he will incarnate as someone who's beautiful. There may be some who may relate more with Bhagavan's virya or strength. And so there may some who may relate with Bhagavan's ferocious avatar more. And then there's the concept of Devatas, who are also like demigods, who are like lower than gods. And that then becomes, Devatas are essentially like the administrators who help God. And so you can also worship Devatas, but the right way to worship Devatas would be to worship them to reach the Supreme Lord. What the Devatas do, because they are administrators, are they going to help you with those 4 Purusharthas? How do you get how do you get wealth? How do you get progeny? How do you those kinds of questions? Yeah, so in summary, these I thought were the concepts that were most important and most common to Hinduism, but there's so much diversity that we could go on. So I'll open it up for questions. Yeah. And I'm no expert, so that's why I told you that this is the book that I looked at, and you should also get it.